This is BBC Tees.
It's 11 o'clock. Good morning. I'm Madeline Briggs. There are fears that two chemical tankers off the Redcar coast could run aground. The wind is now gusting at 50 miles per hour and is expected to get worse. David Cox is from Redcar RNLI.
We were paged at about 9 o'clock this morning to alert us of two separate incidents involving chemical tankers in the Tees Bay area. Both of them are dragging their anchors in very strong northeasterly gales at the moment. One of the vessels is actually unable to lift its anchor because the windlass that pulls the anchor up has failed, and he's having to use his engines to stabilise the craft. And the other one is dragging its anchor and awaiting tugs to assist.
Proud of where we live. This is BBC Tees.
It's 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Madeline Briggs. A tanker is struggling off the coast of Redcar and there are fears it could run aground. The emergency services have been put on standby. David Cox from the RNLI says his team have been monitoring the situation over the last few hours.
Well, the sea conditions are growing all the time. The wind is gusting up to 50 knots and it's blowing a steady 40 knots at the moment. So we've got gale force 8 gusting to gale force 9.
Proud of where we live. This is BBC Tees.
It's 2 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Andrea McMillan. A tanker is still struggling off the coast of Redcar and there are fears it could run aground. The emergency services have been put on standby. Dave Cox from the RNLI says his team have been monitoring the situation over the last few hours.
Well, the sea conditions are growing all the time. The wind is gusting up to 50 knots and it's blowing a steady 40 knots at the moment. So we've got gale force 8 gusting to gale force 9.
Proud of where we live. This is BBC Tees.
It's 3 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Andrea McMillan. A tanker is struggling off the coast of Redcar and there are fears it could run aground. The emergency services have been put on standby. The seas are getting rougher as the high tide approaches in around an hour's time. Dave Cox from the RNLI says his team have been stood down now, but the Hartlepool crews are still monitoring the situation.
Well, the sea conditions are growing all the time. The wind is gusting up to 50 knots and it's blowing a steady 40 knots at the moment. So we've got gale force 8 gusting to gale force 9.
You're listening to the news on BBC Tees.
Spirit this afternoon on BBC Tees. Let's head out and about then. We've dispatched one of our reporters out into the cold to go and find out the latest on what's happening with this tanker that's struggling not to run aground off the coast. We can get more on this with our reporter Jonathan Swingler. Jonathan, whereabouts are you then?
Hi, Catherine. Welcome to a very, very windy Hartlepool. I'm at the RNLI and looking out to sea at the moment. The spray is about 100 feet in the air. I mean, I've lived in Hartlepool myself, but I've never seen it like this. It's incredible. Joining me now is Gary Woff from the RNLI. There's worries about this boat, or this tanker, I should say. I hear it's okay now.
Yes, we've just had word on the VHF off the HM Coast Guard that the ship, the Transfjord, had winch problems this morning, the anchor winch, and obviously it took him all day to fix it, but he's actually just got underway in the last 5 minutes, so everything's looking good now.
How worrying was it? Because at the time when we got the call in the morning, was this fear that it was just drifting, it couldn't get his anchor up?
Yeah, he reported his anchor drifting and his winch motor had failed. So the Humber Coast Guard alerted ourselves and Redcar lifeboat as well, put them on standby in case he dragged over the pipeline across Tees Bay, and then obviously he could eventually go onto the shore.
And we've never had an accident like that here, from my understanding. I mean, what could have happened?
Yeah, we had a similar accident in 1993 when the big tanker went aground on Redcar front, and that's when the Hartlepool lifeboat actually capsized on that incident.
Are you pleased not to have gone out on this? Because looking at it now, I've never seen anything like it. It's horrific.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been out on worse, but it's uncomfortable. It's not very nice looking out there. There's about 4 metre waves, but the waves are hitting the off pier, and the spray is about over 100 foot high. It's very inclement.
Oh, good. That's one way of putting it, yeah. What's it been like today, finally? I mean, just looking out at this, thinking you might have to go out. I mean, has it been worrying sitting there, just thinking what's going to happen?
No, we don't worry about it. You obviously try and put a plan together. But yeah, all the lads were on standby. All came down and thought, well, obviously you look out there and you think, oh well. But we train for it, train for bad weather, and you just take it as it comes. Each incident's different.
Well, it's great that it's been sorted over the last few minutes. Looking out to the headland, Catherine, I can see the spray. It seems to be going higher than the houses now. It's unreal. Yeah. And my hands have now frozen to the microphone.
Oh, poor you. Just a quick question for your guest there, Jonathan, if he's all right. I just wanted to check, you mentioned this incident happened before in the early 90s. If the ship had run aground today, are we talking sort of environmental impact, or is it more the danger to the crew on board?
Of course, I've been talking to a few people earlier about that and wasn't clear as to what was on board the vessel. I mean, do you know what was actually on board?
We just actually looked on the AIS system, and it's just a chemical tanker.
So there's no knowing as to what could be the contents?
On board. Obviously, the Coast Guard has more information on that one.
OK, just want to find out later, I think.
Thank you very much. Go and get warm. Our reporter Jonathan swung that out a very, very windy-sounding Hartlepool this afternoon.
Neil and Diane on BBC Tees.